the number one questions that I receive about Tonex Pedal on a very regular basis is, what is the OK, low, high meter and the global input trim setting actually telling us? Now, I've long stated that I don't really believe it's really needed, and it's not really telling us anything of any use. A lot of folks believe that it is telling them when they're about to clip the A to D converter going into Tonex Pedal, but that is not the case. I'm going to prove that to you today. We've already proven that the global input trim is actually after the A to D converter, and because of that is no different than just simply using the gain control in our preset. So what I've done here, and the reason I have Tonex software up, we're not actually going to really utilize this today, but I have a little loop tone model I made, which basically was taking the output, creating a tone model of just the guitar DI, sending those test signals out back into an input on my audio interface, and just creating a guitar DI that's going to sound like this. Just like I would plug my guitar into a normal audio interface's guitar instrument input. Now, the reason I decided to do this is because I want two things to be possible once I transfer this over Tonex Pedal. So what I've done is I just dragged that up to Tonex Pedal. As you see there, it's going to have the little DI guitar with absolutely nothing else on it. So it's going to give us a very clean sound so that we can hear if there's any digital distortion artifacts coming from clipping the converters. So we can actually get out of that now and come over to Cubase. And you'll notice now up on the screen, I have my Tonex Pedal hooked up here with that guitar DI ultra clean tone model sitting here. Now let's just check and see what my settings are here. Let's go into global input trim, and I have it set at 0 right now. We'll come back out of that, and you'll notice that I have the gain knob at 5, or its default setting. So I'm going to send a test signal now into Tonex Pedal. Basically what I have going on here, and I'm going to show you in a second, I'm going to unplug this, and I'm going to get my multimeter out and hook it up to this cable. Excuse my hands in the camera. And just to show you what exactly I have going on here, I'll turn my multimeter on and show you that I have, and I hope that shows up on screen, a 1.546 volt signal coming out of this cable and going into Tonex Pedal. So that would equate to a level of 6 dBu. So I'm going to unhook that, and I'm going to plug this back into Tonex Pedal. So we now know that we have a fairly healthy 6 dBu signal going into the front of Tonex. We don't hear any clipping whatsoever. Now let's go over to our global input trim, and you'll notice when we go in here, it says, okay, everything seems to be fine here. Now, if I turn this down, it goes to low. And this is the thing that concerns people. They think that if they see low, that somehow this is going to be a wrong setting. And if they see high, that it's going to also be a wrong setting. Well, you'll see here, it doesn't take long for me to get into the high range here. But one thing you will notice is that no matter how much I bring this up, I don't actually clip the analog to digital converters. What you are hearing is a much louder signal here, but it doesn't actually start clipping, and I'll prove that even further in just 1 second utilizing the gain knob. So really, what are we getting out of adjusting this so that it says okay? Well, nothing really that's telling. It's not telling us anything about whether we're clipping those converters. Now, let's do this then. Let's take this with the global input trim at 0 and the gain at 5, like I have it set, just to make sure everybody's on board with this. We have it at 5, gain at 5, which, and the reason the gain is so important is it's the same as the global input trim. So this is set to 0. So we're going to record a few seconds of that over here on this track. So when I hit record, that's what we're getting here. And you see this sine wave, nice clean sine wave being recorded right here. Okay, let's stop that. Now let's do something else. Let's come over here, and we are going to bring our gain knob down to 2.1. Now I've had previous videos about this, that doing that is going to actually drop the input hitting the front of the tone model by 15 dB. So now when we come back over to our global input trim and we crank that to 15, we're going to record that as well over here. We'll just do approximately the same amount of time that we had going for the other one. All right, we'll stop that. And then we're going to do one other thing. I'm going to bring this all the way down to minus 12. And you might ask, why minus 12? Well, that's because when I crank the gain to 10, and we know the gain is absolutely after the A to D converter, as we also know the global input trim is. So when this is up to 10, that's like boosting it 12 dB. So now we're going to record that. The reason I'm recording them is because we want to be able to listen to these back-to-back seamlessly to hear if we notice any difference. But obviously, we're not hearing any clipping here. Even where we had this audio example here where we boosted the input trim of a 6 dBu signal by 15 dB, which would equate it to 21 dBu, we still were not clipping the analog to digital converter. And something tells me that if that global input trim was actually, in fact, before the A to D converter, we would have been into digital distortion. So now let's go back and listen to these. So here is the first one, which is when we had gain at 5 and global input trim at 0. When we get to this one, we obviously have this little blip as to where it's edited. There's no difference. So this is now global input trim at 15 and compensating with the gain knob to bring it back down, because like I said, the gain knob and the global input trim are doing the exact same thing. Then we go to this other one, where the global input trim was set at -12 and the gain knob at 10. They all sound exactly the same. So really the reason I'm showing this is to show you that the global input trim and its indicator that says okay, low, and high, one thing we know they are not doing is telling us whether we are going to be clipping the A to D converter. And this is why I have always stated I don't really pay attention to those meters. And I also keep my global input trim at a more reasonable setting. I have mine at -3 just because that's where I make my tone models to sound exactly like I make them here in my room. And then I just simply use the gain knob to go up and down and be able to save that as a preset. So I hope that that was helpful, and I hope that that really finally clears this up, because I get this question. I know I've done a lot of videos about the gain knob and about global input trim, but a lot of folks keep asking, well, if all of that stuff you said is true, why do we still have this low, okay, and high meter? And I've always just answered that I don't really know. I don't really pay any attention to it. I pretty much just ignore it and I get on with doing things and making music with this stuff. I hope that that just puts some folks' minds at ease as far as not needing this to not say high or not say low or not say okay. We can just set that global input trim at a reasonable amount, somewhere around 0 or -3, and then simply use the gain knob to move it up and down, save that per preset, and then you're off and running. So I hope that that was useful and I hope it was helpful. I'm going to leave you today with some music for one of my latest tone model collections, which is the Z-Ray Ultimate Collection, which is based off my beautiful, incredible, one of my new favorite amps, Dr. Z X-Ray amplifiers. I hope you enjoy those tones. Please like the video, share it with anybody you think would get some use or enjoyment out of watching, and also please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back really soon with some more. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.